This is Don and Alex from Temple of Void. We're going to take you behind the riff.
We're going to play the riffs from every track on the album, and we're going to talk about our inspirations, how we wrote it, and just take you behind our creative process and how it came to be for, what's the name of this record, Don?
Summoning
the Slayer. That's right. We're professional, and we haven't been together for 9 months, so we're going to see how this goes. For the first video, we're going to talk about track number 1, which is called Behind the Eye. So you said this is the last song we wrote for the record?
Yeah, I think this is the last song that we put together for the record.
This one is one of those ones where I came up with the original riff, and for me it was like a total classic American death metal style riff. And there's something about like the spidery, like the sort of spider walking of playing it that physically feels really good to me. Mm-hmm. And it's, I'm gonna say it's like typical of what we do, but when we have that American death metal sound, I feel like my hands naturally go in a certain rhythmic patterns for Temple of Void. And this was one of those ones that came up. And when Jason locks in with the groove, you just can't help but just vibe on it.
It's a serious headbanger.
Yeah, it's a total headbanger. We probably played it faster and then slowed it down and got it into like TOV. Yeah. Sometimes when I'm writing riffs, I like to kind of play them like much faster, and I imagine like blast beats behind them.
Yeah.
But then when we take them to practice, that's not what TOV does. So it's interesting when you have something in mind and then we bring it to band practice and then we do something totally different with it.
Yeah.
And you can play like a fast riff slow or whatever. So this one had that sort of like, kind of like mouth feel, it's like good like finger feel to it, where you can just kind of like lock into that and just play it over and over again. And then after a couple bars, kind of signature TOV thing where I'll move up and, or one of us will move up, in this case it's me, I'll move up 3 frets and then harmonize with it. And then that just makes it even more sinister. So that was...
It's one of our go-to moves usually.
Yeah.
One of our favorites, yeah.
And so then after that, we changed the riff a bit. We put some space in it. Temple of Void is what it is. We're a death doom band by definition, but we never want to write the same record twice. So we've never had a riff that had space in it like that.
Right.
And that's something that I like in riffs here and there. So I'm like, I wanted to have one of those ones where I had to take some space. So we chopped part of it out. We got bass, rumbling underneath it. And to me, it's like I was influenced by death when I had this idea for kind of chopping it out. Mm-hmm. So that's where like that kind of background is like sort of like morbid angel-y death, is kind of creeping into to this thing. And then the next part is still like sort of an augmentation / shift, kind of change to the riff. And it's kind of the third part of the riff. Mm-hmm. We're playing that one. So that one, the interesting thing is that this part comes from Alice in Chains. Initially,
like them bones, right?
It's them bones.
Yeah, 100%.
So initially it was like chun 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 chun, and it's probably a pinch harmonic. Mm-hmm. But Don and I the whole band probably listened to so much Alice in Chains during the writing of this record that playing them bones and just kind of hitting that note was like, no, we're not going to do a pinch harmonic. That's what we would have done.
Yeah.
Let's do a little. So that's how grunge influences us. It's just a matter of like just playing two notes.
Yeah.
And it doesn't sound like grunge, but that's the lineage. You know, it's
Yeah.
like listening to Alice in Chains, and then what do you pick up? You pick up that little, and then you take it and you put it in here.
Right.
You know? So,
And I think too, like even doing something like that, like that's not something that's in like, that's not like a TOV characteristic either.
no, right.
As far as like riffs and stuff are concerned.
Like the groove.
Yeah, and even just like that, like something kind of being in that like register.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
where it's just kind of this like, you know, where
Right.
almost, I feel like if you play it just by itself like that, it almost has like, it's got this real twangy kind of feel to it.
But when you do the TOV thing, you know,
Yeah.
it's TOV.
Yeah.
So-
And there's just like there's like this other like layer of flavor.
Yeah. Yeah. In our layer cake of death doom, of death doom and grunge and you know, shoegaze and all the other shit that we put in, that we layer on top of it. So then chorus riff.
Yeah. Most of the songs on the record, I think they're like half like riff ideas of yours, like riffs of mine. I think the way this song was is like the front half was like all of your ideas, back half kind of ones that fell out of my guitar. Pretty much anything for me that's going to be trem picked, I'm always on board with. Like I feel like that's the bulk of what I bring to the table a lot of times is like the real like digging in, grinding into the strings, like really like picking on the notes.
It adds good contrast to the riff before, which is down picked,
Yeah.
you know, slow, and then now we pick it up for the chorus. So we've got this contrast in like trem picking and contrast in drum beats.
Yeah, which I think it's always kind of been that way. I think with Temple of Void, even before I was in the band, where it's you know, a lot of the songs kind of do one of these, where it's, you know, different feel, different kind of vibe. You know, even if you're playing the same riff, you can kind of play it one way here and play it another way at a later part in the song. I feel like this one, I think we went through a couple of iterations of the riff before we got to this one. I think we were like, you know, we were kind of playing it like more singular notes and kind of stretching it out in spots, you know, like, and I think a lot of this, I think there's a good amount of parts on the album where we went through several versions and ideas of parts before we decided which ones we were going to fully commit to.
This was one of those ones where, so our writing method for this record was we wrote independently most of the time, put all of our riffs in a Dropbox, and then we'd get together mostly at my house, just like Don would come over.
Yeah.
We'd go through the Dropbox, which had all these ridiculous names for all of our riffs, and go, you know, what works with what, or what one's really like vibing with you, or what's vibing with me. And then if I identify one of Don's riff that I think is really good, maybe the next week it's like, all right, maybe can I write something that complemented that, or can I connect a couple riffs in the Dropbox one?
Yeah.
I feel like this is one of those ones that stood out in the Dropbox, and I kind of wrote this one, and then you're like, I've got, you know, the genesis for the chorus, and that came straight out of the Dropbox. So the last riff from the song.
Yeah, the last riff, I really like the way you like the feel, like in the fretting hand. I really like I like those kinds of, like, I don't know, crawls or walks or whatever you're gonna call them.
Yeah.
I'm really a fan of where you kind of you're starting the notes like in like a more of like a higher kind of register, and I like doing it and then hitting like that open, like hitting like an open C in there, like somewhere like in the middle where you like feel, where you almost feel everything kind of drop out a little bit, you know. I feel like that, like if you hit it right, that really can stick out. Like when you hit that low note, that real low note.
There you go.
That's one of the things I really like about that one.
That's probably behind the riff on Behind the Eye. So we can wrap it up here and then, catch you next time on the next track.
Thanks for checking it out.